Welcome to the Firehouse. I'm your host, Captain Kyle Smith. You're responding down the road less traveled en route to financial freedom. If you're a first responder, then planning your future through financial literacy is a minimum requirement. This isn't financial advice, just a conversation to get your wheels turning. Ready? Good, because you're at sea. What's up, everyone? It's Captain Kyle Smith, and this week I sat down for a morning meeting with San Diego Fire Captain Eric Faulk. Listen in as he shares all the different ways that you can help contribute to your retirement and hedge against inflation, taxes, and sequence risk. Hope you guys enjoy it. Eric, welcome to the bullpen. Thanks for meeting me.
Hey, thank you, Kyle. I heard a lot of great things. My guys at the fire station mentioned your podcast that you were doing, and I'm honored to be on the show. Hopefully I can contribute something, at least tell you what not to do. So I'm here. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Well, if you do tell us what not to do, it's probably based on some things that you did the wrong way. And with that being said, you're in very good company there. So I'm stoked to hear about your first alarm. But Eric, before we get into that, how have things kind of changed at the Faulk household since the pandemic started?
There's been quite a few changes. My wife's a teacher, and it was an interesting situation to where she's up in Escondido, and her school district decided to go back in person, but we live here in North Park, and the San Diego City schools were closed. So it was a kind of a rough situation for us for the last 6 months. But right now, our kids just got back to full school. So we're trying to get back to some type of normalcy. But yeah, it definitely has affected us, not so much financially, but definitely it's good to get the kids back to socialization a little bit. I could definitely see that need for that, getting out of the house. They were getting way too comfortable with us, I think, over here. A lot of whining going on.
Yeah, no doubt. And for those that are listening from outside the area, Escondido to North Park is about 45 minutes away. So it is, that sounds like it's very challenging. But I think, we're slowly starting to open back up. We're slowly starting to get the kids back to school and kind of seeing the tail end of the thing. Hopefully, we're still not
Right.
out of it yet, but I think we're trending that way. So that's good.
Right. No, I definitely agree. And like I said, we were very fortunate through the pandemic, me, being a firefighter and my wife being a teacher, we didn't lose our jobs. You know what I mean? So, I always say, hey, as bad as sometimes things, or we can think things are, we were very fortunate, through these times with people losing their jobs. We had a lot of family and friends that are going through some really tough times right now. So, it's always good to look at the good side of the coin. And like I said, knock on wood, we've been surviving, I think, better than most. So very fortunate in that aspect.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the right attitude. That's the right approach to take. That, there's silver lining that can be found, even if you are really struggling. There are good things that have come about throughout the pandemic. If for nothing else, having your kids home for an extended period of time was really nice. And yeah, it does start to wear on you, where they do start to whine a little bit, and they're just hanging around the house, can't do anything. But it is. Well, I think we'll look back in years to come and really be grateful for the amount of time we got to spend with them. So that's cool.
Yeah, that is a good point. And I know you're playing a lot of sports with your kids. I'm doing kind of the same with mine. Taking them out to the park and playing. So yeah, definitely a positive spin on spending more time with the kids. So yeah. I know my kids have really enjoyed it, and sleeping in a little bit and being in PJs half the day. We actually had to crack the whip a little bit and say, okay, you got to actually put some real clothes on, you know what I mean? And when you are Zooming with your kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, people can't see the top half of us. I'm actually not even wearing pants, so I can't say anyway, enough about that. Eric, you ready to get into your first alarm?
Yes, I am.
We're right on. So as you will well know, a first alarm assignment at the San Diego Fire Department consists of 4 engines and a truck. But here at the Firehouse, I'll ask you 4 questions. You give us 1 piece of advice. That sound good?
All right, sounds great.
All right, cool. So you're going to be first in on your first alarm, and when you're first in, you got to give a size up. So that's who you are, where you work, and how long you've been doing it.
Awesome. Well, my name is Eric Faulk. I work for the San Diego Fire Department. I've been working there it's coming up on 16 years right now. I'm a captain at the hazmat station, which is down at Station 45. I've got great people around me. It's a great department. I really love what I do. I think most of you guys that know me always see oh, Eric, you're always happy. It's because, you know what? I am very stoked where I'm at and where I'm at in life. And you know what I mean? I want to not only share, but like I want to, you know, tell people like, hey, you know what I mean? There's a lot of other things that we could be doing that are less glamorous and, you know, maybe not make as lucrative of a paycheck. So, you know, and again, well, hopefully, you know, we'll get that raise. But you know, if not, you know, I think we all just keep doing our job. And like I said, very fortunate to be at a hazmat station too, where that, you know, that's a little extra money, which is also something that, you know, people don't realize when they're working. Like when I'm working, I'd rather work and make a little extra money for the family than not. So, you know, and it's not all financially driven, because I do like the hazmat aspect of it and the station, but I mean, 10% doesn't hurt either, right? So, you know, it's just one of those things to where, you know, that's always something that I throw out to the guys as a little carrot, you know, dangling. Hey, you don't want to go to 12s, even though no, I always encourage them to go to 12s. I know that was one of your old stations, and I'm always encouraging my guys to go over to the inner city and get that experience. But before they get to a really good double house, hopefully I can keep them over with me for a few more years. So
Make the extra bucks. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. For those listening that are not from San Diego, we do get hazard pay for stations like 45s, where Eric is stationed as a hazmat technician, and other areas where you're doing additional, you have additional job responsibilities. So our department gives them a little bit of a pay incentive. 45s is in the middle of our city, right across the street from the old. There used to be this team here in San Diego called the Chargers or something. Eric, I forget. Play football or something.
who?
Yeah, I don't know. They used to be around, but that's where Station 45 is. So kind of rewinding a little bit, where did you mentioned the benefit of the extra pay bump. If you got to be at work anyway, you might as well try to get a little bit of extra. But where did your journey towards financial independence really begin?
You know, we what going through, and I actually wrote some notes of like maybe some things that I wanted to go over, and it really started from my parents. My dad, he died at 93 about 5 years ago, and you're like, man, how old are you, Eric? You know, he had me really late. He had me in his 50s. You know what I mean? And my mom was like 20 years younger than him, and he grew up in the Depression. He had like an accounting background, but he was very conservative. And people say, oh, well, your dad was an accountant and, you know, he worked at Caltrans and he got a pension. But man, his pension, I think was $800 a month. And one thing that I realized was after he retired, he was a very conservative, and so he never invested in the stock market. He didn't want to buy real estate. He bought like I bonds and E bonds, and you know he was making between like 3 and maybe 5% on these bonds. And at that time, the stock market and the housing prices, you could just see that inflation just pretty much got a hold of him, and he never got out of his shell. So, you know, it was a good thing of, you know, him being that super saver and wanting to save all this stuff. But I also learned from my, like, what not to do. And it's like, man, you know, as you know, right now, real estate is, I mean, it's going crazy around here. And, you know, you can't just have your money on the sideline your entire life, hoping that, you know, oh, if things are going to crash, you know what I mean? Like you have to do something to go forward. So that was kind of how my journey kind of began, of having a good solid background in finance. I ended up going over to San Diego State and having an international business degree with a finance, you know, a minor. And with that, it definitely opened my eyes of that, hey, there's a lot of opportunities to actually make more money than just going into the I bond or inflation bonds or the EE bonds that are making, I mean, right now they're making like less than what 1 or 2%. So yeah, it's something that really kind of got me kickstarted in wanting to get that financial freedom. So that was kind of the start of it, I would say, is that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, man. We are all informed by our parents. That's the first exposure we all have to financial literacy or finances in general, whether they're investors or they're not. That is going to have an impact on the way you view your money, right? Your money personality profile. But you touched on something called inflation and how that influences you and all that. Can you just expand on that a little bit? Like why wouldn't I just want to keep a bunch of cash on the side and not worry about investing? Maybe it's too complicated. It seems like it's overwhelming. Like, why is it important to invest to hedge against inflation.
Right. Inflation is it's a very real, and I think we've all realized that. And I kind of use real estate as an example right now. 20 years ago, house prices were, I mean, you could buy a place in Pacific Beach or North Park for like, 300,000-400,000. I mean, you're sniffing at what, almost $1 million for just a house, and it's not even a great house. It's like a 1,000 square foot house. And that inflation means that, the cost of living um, increases as we get older. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that our savings and our financial plan matches up to that, to where, what's good now might not be good for us in 10-15 years, right? And that's one of the things that, I learned. And I think I'm like you, Kyle. I've always talked to some of the older people from our department that were retiring. And one of the things, that we talked about was, well, do we not want to retire like in a down market versus an up market? And hopefully, I think the goal is to not worry about the market still, and have enough different nest eggs of maybe a little bit in real estate, maybe a little bit in, your 401k, deferred comp, or Roth IRA, and have a few different, baskets to draw from, so you're not worried about that stock market crashing. You know what I'm saying? Oh, well, I can't survive, right? So this is where that inflation, I think, does catch up with us, because if we just put it in our mattress and just hope that we're going to be fine in 20 years, I mean, who knows what the house prices are? Who knows what the cost of milk is? There's going to be a lot of changes, coming. And so I think for us to not work like my dad worked up until he was in his 80s, right? You know what I mean? And he was a worker, and he gave me a great work ethic. And that was a great generation. I think that, they called it the greatest generation of all time. They never complained, and they worked really hard. But I'm telling you, I don't want to work until I'm 80. You know what I mean? So this is it kind of jump started me into thinking, okay, how do I not get into that situation? So that, and again, that inflation did hurt him a lot.
Yeah.
And so that,
No, that makes sense, man. And that's, we used to make fun of our folks where they could go to the corner store and buy a candy bar for 10 cents. Our
yep.
kids do that today. It's like $1.50. That is inflation, the cost of goods and services going up over time. So what your dollar today buys you is going to be a lot less than what it can do in the future. That's actually why I really love real estate, is because you're buying a piece of property with today's money, but not having to pay it off until way down the road because of the leverage you use with debt. And people have to really understand that piece you're talking about diversifying your streams of income, right? You have your W-2 work, the work from the fire department, but then also doing a little investing on the side. It's a way of just, if the stock market it starts to dip, then you still got the real estate over here. What our folks have to understand is we are in such a position of power because we have such a secure paycheck every 2 weeks. And then you guys yourselves, with your wife being a teacher, we have that great foundation that we can blast off from, but we have to be accountable. We have to take action, and we have to be deliberate in the way we do it. So if your journey began with a father who didn't invest, where are you now on that path?
right. I think most of you know that work for our department. I've worked pretty hard, like with either working overtime or, teaching, or trying to come up with other avenues to make money. I think I got my father's work ethic, but again, like I said, I don't want to keep continuing it, because I think my wife is sick of me saying, oh, overtime's going away, and it's not going to be like this forever. And I think after, this is our 10th year of being married, she's kind of over it. She's like, all right, you need to start slowing this down. But one of our goals is, my wife is also a little bit younger. She's 8 years younger than me, and a teacher. And one of my goals is hopefully to get her to retire sooner, so we can enjoy retirement together. And, for that to happen, it kind of forced my hand to do something more than just working on the fire department and working overtime. I realized that wasn't enough to really have that financial freedom. I give kudos out for the people that are on our job that are like, the single income providers. I'm very fortunate to have a wife that does work, even though, teachers don't make that much money. We're on our healthcare system, and, that little extra income does help. Um, but there's so many different factors that come into it. But working hard early in your career and trying to get that savings and going, and there's a thing called compounding interest. That's something that I did when I was younger, but I stopped contributing because I bought a house, and we can go into a little bit of real estate, and the way we can work around this height of the market. But you just have to really realize that when you invest early, that compounding interest over 15 years might be an X percentage, but in 30 years that thing will almost double or triple in size. And I hear some of these old retired people that said, oh yeah, every time I promoted, I took X amount of dollars, and I added that to my 401k retirement, and now look at what my account is. I'm seeing these like 6 figures or even 7-figure numbers, and I'm like going, wow, like that is like unbelievable. So it kind of got me kickstarted into doing a few different avenues of, okay, what can I do? Do I want to buy a house? And that was one of the things where I bought the house before I met my wife, and it was very difficult for me because I was like a single income person. And one thing that I always kind of recommend to our guys that say, man, everything's so expensive, is I bought a 2-on-1 or a house with a granny flat on it. And I ended up living in that granny flat and ended up renting out, part of the unit to pay for over half of the mortgage, right? So that's kind of a, different avenues to when people say, oh my gosh, I can't afford $1 million house. Well, if there's 2 houses on there, or if you can, somehow get enough to, build a granny flat or maybe live in that granny flat and rent out, you have to kind of do that cost analysis of, okay, can I comfortably afford this mortgage? And Kyle, as you know, we went through some tough times quite a few years ago with the brownouts, where a lot of our people, lost their homes and, definitely financially struggled. So I always, I use this as a caveat, you want to buy as much as you're comfortable with. But yeah, it's, trying to get that financial freedom of having a few different baskets of like real estate versus, putting enough in your 401k with that compounding interest. And then we can even talk about, Roth IRAs. I think a lot of our guys either aren't familiar with that, but you can contribute. I want to say is it 6,000 now or 6,500 a year on that. But I mean, as that grows, that's post-tax money, but I mean, that grows now tax-free. And that's another great avenue to try to just put a different, egg in a different basket.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Can you just explain the difference between post-tax investing versus pre-tax
Yeah.
investing? 401k versus
Okay.
a Roth IRA. Can you just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so 401k, what that does is it actually decreases the tax that you pay now, right? So it's a great thing, especially if you're making a decent amount of money. And I always like recommend, hey, if you're working a lot of overtime and you don't have a lot of write-offs, which honestly, like our family, we don't have a lot of write-offs. I don't write a lot of things off. So Uncle Sam loves us, right? I mean, I'm writing these checks, we put like, zero dependence on, and I'm not getting these massive, tax breaks because we're working, both my wife and I, and we get into that tax bracket to where, it really hurts us. So one of the ways that we can protect some of our money is to actually lower our tax base now. And that is by putting it into either like a 401k or a deferred compensation. So that is, one of the important kind of avenues to kind of look at your whole financial plan. And we can go into maybe a financial one-pager, but I learned this from one of my financial friends, and it kind of gives you kind of a good background of your own financial situation of, okay, well, where's my money at? How am I doing tax wise? How am I doing, compounding interest wise? And how am I doing real estate wise, to try to really get like a better picture of financial freedom. So that post or pre-tax money versus post-tax money would be like a Roth IRA. And a Roth IRA means that you're paying tax on that money now. So it does not lower your taxes now, but when you put that money into there, you can actually now grow that tax free. And for a lot of us that are planning on having, good retirement nest eggs, hopefully, that is our goal, is we're going to be paying more taxes later when we have to cash that out. And so having that Roth IRA is a great avenue of, having tax-free money coming out after you retire. And I believe you can draw that out at 59 and a half.
That's great.
And you can also draw the principal out before without penalty at all, which again, we talked about that compounding interest, which means, your interest grows upon the interest that's growing. And, those numbers are pretty astronomical. You can YouTube it or do some research on it, but I mean, those numbers are pretty staggering of, keeping your investments in at like whatever percent that you're comfortable with. But those numbers are definitely true to help you, get that wealth.
Yeah, 100%. Bo Reinhardt, who I had on the program a while back from San Diego Tax Team, on his website, which I'll link, they have this great compounding interest calculator that you just plug it in, and the numbers do just accelerate so quickly when you have the benefit of the compounding interest. And I love that. But the part you're talking about is, the tax code. The government loves investors, right? They have all these incentives for investors. Why I love real estate, another reason, is how generous the tax code is in terms of write-offs. But if you're looking for other methods, you're looking for other avenues to sort of preserve that wealth. They say it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Some of these other avenues are really important to go down, whether it's a 401k or a Roth IRA or something else, because at some point taxes are going to come into the conversation. And again, going back to the diversification part, you have to project a little bit what you think your tax bracket will be at retirement age, 59 and a half, for example. You have to project what you think that'll be. Are you going to be in a higher tax bracket? Or are you going to be in a lower tax bracket, or the same? And then two, so maybe that informs the way you allocate your resources. If you think you're going to be in a different tax bracket, maybe that means you're going to contribute a little bit more to your 401k, or maybe that means you're going to contribute a little bit more to your Roth, depending on where you think you're going to be. But the hard part is that we have no idea what the tax code is going to look like in 20 years. So contribute maybe a little to the 401k pre-tax dollars, contribute maybe a little to the Roth IRA post-tax dollars as a hedge against the uncertainty of where the tax code might be.
You're exactly right. And again, the future is very unknown, right? So, if we try to, just have, maybe own a little bit of real estate, own a little pre-tax money, own a little post-tax money, and even maybe have another business or something on the side. I mean, there's so many different ways to do this. But again, the only way that I know doesn't work just from me growing up is putting money into a mattress, right? You know what I mean? And not doing anything with it. So I think that was the goal of, maybe coming on here and, talking about what have I learned from people that have made mistakes. And I've definitely made some pretty good mistakes throughout my financial career too. So
well, do you mind sharing some of those, or sharing one
Yeah.
that's in your mind, something maybe you learned
Oh.
and got better from?
Yeah, well, you would think you would learn from your previous mistakes, but this one actually just happened recently. When COVID hit, I'm always a big advocate of, hey, you know what, set it and forget it, right? You start investing in your 401k, deferred compensation, and just let the roller coaster ride. Over 30 years. The stock market's gonna, take over, and you're not gonna have to worry about that. Well, I give that advice. And of course, I talked to some of the guys on my station, and once COVID hit, the stock market crashed, right? It went down. I think we all saw like 20 to 30% losses. And I thought in my mind, I was like, man, what is going on? This world is changing. If I can just get back to where I was, I'm going to pull out and I'm just going to let this thing ride, right? So what did I do? The thing came right back to where it was. And I was like, I told my guys at the station, I'm like, hey, I'm pulling out. So luckily I only pulled out half. So I have my Roth IRA that's still investment, and I have my wife's retirement that's still investing in the market. But I took pretty much half of our retirement and I took it completely off. I'm like, you know what? I can't see how this economy is going as strong as it is with everything being shut down and, with the politics going on and everything. So I was like, hey, pull it out. Well, what are we at? Like, 2 months later, we're at like the height of the market. And, I'm like, wow, like, I can't believe that, I thought for sure I was going to be that guy that like knew what was going on. I had no idea, you know what I mean? And that's one of those things to where I'm kicking myself now. So, I mean, that's just like, you know, trying to be like a trader, you know what I mean? Like, I think if anyone tells you they know about the market, they don't. Like, no one can, foresee the market. It's always easy. Like, the Bitcoins and stuff are the latest and greatest thing right now, or Tesla, last year. It's always like, I think, it's almost educated gambling going on, you know what I mean? So that's where, keeping those investments going, even though like sometimes like your gut tells you otherwise. Again, sometimes you lose just by doing that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And they always say, time in the market is much more important than trying to time the market. I know for sure I'm not smart enough. I don't have the headspace or the bandwidth to follow the amount of information required to actually be an effective trader. I don't. It's not something that is interesting enough for me that I would want to do that. So I like you. I like not set it and forget it, but I like just this slow and steady growth over time. For me, that is a perfectly acceptable amount of returns for the amount of effort that I'm putting forward. And for me, and I think probably for most of our folks, that's the way to go. Now, if somebody was trying to get started in this area of personal finance or personal financial independence, Eric, like where would you direct them? What would you tell them?
You know, uh, the big thing, and I think we've all heard this, it takes money to make money. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes you do have to take some risk. I started, with putting a lot of the money that I had saved up into the house, right? And, I bought a 2-on-1, as I said earlier, and that kind of gave me that at least, hey, I'm in on this one aspect of it, but I really didn't have money to do anything else. And one of my buddies had this like really good investment plan where he was like, hey, I worked at this company. They were buying secondary loans from a bank, and where we were actually buying them at 10 cents off the dollar because these, there were so many foreclosures going on in these banks, but we're trying to just offload these secondary mortgages. So I was working for this company that were buying these, and he was like, we were just holding them and then, selling them back at like 30, 40 cents. And he goes, this guy was 39 years old and he retired. You know what I mean? So he ended up losing his job, but he was like, I still have the contacts. He said, well, why don't we do that? So he came to me and said, well, can we, would you be interested? And I'm like, well, I don't have cash. And he actually mentioned, well, he said, can you pull some out of your home? You know what I mean? And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, talk about sleepless nights and talking, with your, wife or spouse, or family members, whoever's important. That is, and I think, that is one of the most important things is for you and your family to be on the same page, right? And so, I mean, this was a lot of sleepless nights. And so we ended up doing it and taking that kind of financial risk. And, it paid off, which, it couldn't have, but, the HELOC that we actually pulled off, or that, temporary loan off our house that we used, we could have still afforded our home and been fine. Like, if he would have taken off to Costa Rica and we would have never seen him again, you know what? It wouldn't have really changed our life, dramatically. Yeah, it would have been a bummer, and it probably would have taken us a few more years to maybe pay off our home. But it was a financial kind of almost risk and opportunity to where, we did have that equity, and, we could pull some money out. And I'm not recommending for people to like pull money out of their homes and go to these like, crazy adventures. But if it really makes sense and you really trust the people, one, you have to really trust them. And two, doing business with family or friends, as you guys know, or even, people on the fire department, you know, you should have it crystal clear, because you never want friendships or, money does strange things to people. I think we've all seen that, throughout like my life. And, everything looks great up until it was a business. So if you are going to make like a business venture like that, it was like a crystal clear, like we had a contract, we ended up opening up like an LLC. Like it was like full on, like, okay, I knew exactly where I stood. And if one of us wanted out, this was what we were going to do. You're right. So, taking that opportunity to do something like that, again, was a chance, but it's a chance for us to get that financial freedom to where if I wouldn't have done that, how much longer would I have just ended up like my dad and not done anything? You know what I mean? So that was one of those things.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting, man, is we get so good at the risk assessment on the calls that we go on. We become experts at that, but we don't really have that experience in personal finance or in the investing world. And so it makes us like very conservative. And then all of a sudden, this guy over here has some cockamamie scheme that he wants to invest in. And then we're like, yes, I'm in, I'm all in, without
Yeah.
doing any due diligence, without learning the very first thing about anything. And it just boggles your mind because like we are professional problem solvers. We are the ones that are responsible for doing the thing out here. And then when it comes to investing, we just get ourselves all screwed over. And it like really frustrates me. And that is a huge reason that the Firehouse even exists, man, so that we can push this information out. We can give people the tools they might need to help them make informed decisions. But just to kind of wrap up your first alarm here, Eric, looking back, what piece of advice would you give your probationary self as it relates to personal finance or investing or anything else?
Financially, we talked about, just putting that money at least a little bit into like your 401k. And I know people are like, well, I'm trying to save up for a house. I'm trying to, save up for this. And, and my house is my investment. And I totally get that. But, as you promote or as you get even to like a specialty station, maybe take a small percentage of that and put that away, because I'm telling you, I've seen it. And, you would think that I would have known better, as a finance major, but I also kind of was a little hesitant, and I kind of stopped putting into 401k and deferred comp for, quite a few years because I had all these other avenues. But what's crazy though, Kyle, is if I would have just invested in the 401k and deferred comp from the get-go, and all these other little wazoo adventures that, ended up working out, I wouldn't have been that far behind if I would have just done that gravy train from the beginning and just started investing that with that compounding interest.
Yeah, man, that's perfect. That's really well said, man. Just we can't go back and change the past, but we can start right here, right now, and change the future. And if we do that, if we're intentional, if we invest instead of just sock money underneath the bed or in the closet or whatever, we will be sitting here in 20 years looking back just so stoked that we did that because of the power of compounding interest. And I just love that, man. I think with that, Eric, you got knocked down your first alarm.
Perfect. We might get a call back to it, hopefully later. If we didn't pull that ceiling, you're going to tell me it's blown in insulation, right?
Yeah, maybe so. We'll get a rekindle here going in a little bit. But hey, if people are looking to continue the conversation with you, Eric, where could they find you?
I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook, but I am at Station 45. And I think most of the people on our job, I have an open, communication line with anyone. If you guys ever want to talk, please, I'm more than happy to talk and continue the conversation. Or if you, through your end, see that people have more questions about stuff, I would be more than happy to rejoin or, answer whatever those, iffy questions are.
Yeah, perfect. And people that are listening to this from outside our department, if you're just interested in getting in touch with Eric, just contact me and I'll put you in touch. Eric, I want to thank you for all the information that you've given us today, all the great conversations you and I have had over the years, and for your time today.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Kyle. Thank you for putting this on. Like I said, I know everyone's appreciative of it. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right.
All right, hey, thanks again to Eric for meeting me here in the bullpen. Guys, his message about using the power of compounding interest to really accelerate the growth of your nest egg is just perfect. And then using the diversification of investing in pre-tax dollars or post-tax dollars is a great way to ensure that you have the retirement that you want. If you'd like to learn more about Eric, go ahead and contact me and I'll put you in touch with him. If you'd like to learn more about us, we're on Facebook at The Firehouse. That's f.i.r.ehouse. On Instagram, the _fire_house. On LinkedIn, The Firehouse Investors, or any place you listen to podcasts. If you learned something today and you'd like to hear more, please like, share, and subscribe. But no matter what you do, take this information, go out there, and get some. Station F.